But and to be fair, I was so broke in New York. It was like it was impossible to enjoy it. Here's how what I knew how poor I was. One of my friends got bed bugs in his place. Not only did he move, he abandoned all of the possessions he'd accumulated over his entire life over bugs. I realized at that moment my place could have been infested with lions, and I would have been like, "We're gonna figure it out." All right, like, all right, lions, I'm gonna do my thing, you do yours. I labeled all my gazelles, though. All right, I need you to respect that. Is that is that the time, or what am I doing on
No,
time?
you can still keep going, dude.
Just keep going. All right, shit.
Sure, why not?
That
Two
was the new
hour
stuff
set.
I'd lined
Two
up.
hour set.
You said
Okay,
you got 2 hours, and you just kind of figure it out from the 2 hours.
let's do this. Let's do this then. So I get a lot of my news from the from BBC World Service because Sirius won't let me cancel my subscription. So I don't know if this happens to everyone, but like it came with my car, and then I canceled it after a year, and then they just go, well, "What if it's free for a year?" And I'm like, "Okay, fine. I don't understand your business model, but let's do it." So we've been doing this dance for 5 years, and I've not paid for anything. So I every time I get in my car, it plays BBC for like 30 seconds, just and then I live my own life. But I heard this story recently. They were like, we have someone live in Ukraine, in Lviv. And they cut to this reporter, and he's like, we're here on the ground in Lviv, where the local arts district was recently bombed out by Russian forces. One of the casualties in this bombing campaign was a local improv theater. And I'm like, well, that's a weird thing to mention. Why would you bring up the improv theater? And the guy goes, so what's been happening as these families have been huddled down in the subway bunkers, this improv troupe has been down there performing 2 to 3 shows a day. And I'm like, haven't the people of Ukraine suffered enough? Like, really? They're hiding from a Russian bombing campaign, and you're going to force short form improv on them? They're just trying to live, and you're zip zap zopping in their faces. Are you kidding me? Like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen bad improv, but like all the militaries in the world combined cannot bomb as hard as improv can. These poor people are just down there trying to protect their families, and they have to listen to, okay, can I have a suggestion? They're like, yeah, how about if you go fuck yourself? Oh, I heard pajama party. Let's do a pajama party. Ding. I'll do one more. You may do one more?
Sure.
So let's see if I can remember how this was. So this is 15 years ago, something like that, maybe even more. I did a benefit. It was an AIDS benefit in DC. And so, okay, going in, it's at this giant theater, right? And my friends and I, who were all got booked on the show, were very excited to do this. Not just, on one hand, it's like, oh, it's a benefit, it's helping people. But at the same time, we're selfish comics who are like, oh, a packed theater, that, which is probably whatever. We'll move on. So anyway, we get to the theater, and it's like 20 minutes before it's supposed to start, and there were only 3 people in the theater. It's a 1,500 seater, and these 3 people aren't even seated together. And we're like, oh, these must be, employees on break. So I go up to the.
A minute, Michael. I'm excited.
It has been a minute. By the way. And if anybody out there has also wondered, whatever, they're just like, oh, you mean like a real estate agent or like, like an insurance adjuster? And they just think like anyone can do it. But like, it's a weird thing when it comes to the entertainment industry, because it's like it's like you're getting interviewed for a job. You're getting interviewed for a job to give people money, basically, is what it is. It's like, it's the weirdest thing when you think about it.
And just like a real job interview, you have to keep in mind that you're supposed to also be interviewing them, instead of just being like, pick me, pick me. No, my managers, they give me an okay amount of auditions, but the first week I signed with them, I had had the headshots taken, and the headshot photographer really liked me. And so she just kept going. And so we got like, I'm not exaggerating, 3,000 photos. And you can imagine how harrowing it would be, the idea of looking through 3,000 pictures of your face up close and trying to pick 10 that you like. I probably was just never going to do it. I probably would have never looked at them. So intimidating. And so I sent them to my manager, and she looked through 3,000 photos in a day and a half and picked out 10. So she can take more than 10%, as far as I'm concerned, as long as she'll do that every year.
I mean, look, here's the thing about that is that, like, you know, if they're going to put in the work, absolutely worth the commission. But I can't tell you how many times. And by the way, for anyone who's watching the stream on KO Com right now at Comedy Hub or anywhere on Instagram or Twitter or anything like that, and you're wondering like, wow, this is really inside baseball type stuff. Now you can appreciate all the performers that you see out there, whether it's live or, you know, on YouTube or like on film and television, because there's a lot of work that goes into it, not just from them in regards to like the actual work, but like getting pictures, like doing the resume. Like, I mean, it's so funny, Kat, because it's like I would probably say that like 95% of being an artist has nothing to do with art. Maybe 99%.
So much emailing involved in stand-up comedy. Much more emailing than you would possibly imagine.
I mean, look, I think I will have honestly said that like the amount of times that I've gotten an email from somebody and it's clearly been copy and pasted, and I've heard of people like getting really upset about that. They're like, screw that person. They don't put a personal touch and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, this person's been doing this since 1 a.m. Like, I'm just going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Like, it's not that big a deal, but a lot of people, I think it's just the ego thing. And I don't know, but, you know, speaking of the travels thing, so where have you traveled recently? Have you been traveling?
I've been doing some shows in Philadelphia and New York. I went to Boston last year, done some stuff in San Diego. I go to Nashville pretty often. I'm from East Tennessee originally, so it's easy to get a flight to Nashville. The Bay Area. Right now, I'm really focused on getting my apartment cleaned up and fixed up so that I can do house swapping or maybe short-term rental, but you didn't hear it from me.
Well, the entire interweb just heard that. So
I said you didn't hear it from me, y'all. You know, just do me a solid on this.
Oh, sorry. Is the building manager literally next door? Like
that was part of the joke, you guys.
Okay.
And so it's a disaster right now. So I'm also cat sitting for a friend of mine. So there's 4 cats in my place, and so it's like if anyone walked in this apartment, they would immediately call hoarders. I'm not even a hoarder. It would just be the only person they could think of to call that would handle it. And so then today, my water's shut off for maintenance, but they didn't tell me they needed to come into the apartment. I think it was a last minute thing. And so they knocked on the door and I was like, hello. They're like, we need to come in. I was like, please, God, no. Please, no. I'd rather you shot me in the face than came into this apartment. And they were like, okay, we could come back in 10 minutes. And I was like, 10 minutes won't help. Just come in now. Just promise you won't tell anyone what you've seen today. Like,
by the way, I don't know if it's the same thing with your building, but this happens to me with my building. They seem to choose, I don't know, when I'm podcasting or doing an audition or, I don't know, having a very important conversation with like a lawyer or something like that, to walk in, to have to check. Cause they're like, yeah, there's an issue with upstairs with the pipes. So we just need to make sure that everything's fine here. I'm like, well, this doesn't concern me at all, but okay, sure. Why not? Why don't you come in unannounced?
Oh man, no, you guys are bad. I've done that. I flooded my downstairs neighbor's apartment. Sorry, y'all.
It's the hair. Is it the hair? Is it the hair come from the drain?
No, I just took a bath and forgot I was running a bath.
That's amazing. That's
part of the reason I'm painting. I warped that floor. I'm not getting that deposit back. So you might as well go all in because I'm not getting it back.
Oh my God. Speaking of deposits, guys, there are ways that you can to help the show out right here, guys. If you're watching on Twitch, if you're watching on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you're watching, or if you're in the private Zoom room right now, guys, if you're wondering who's in this private Zoom room, you can come into this private Zoom room. Guys, if you're in the private Zoom room, turn off your cameras, turn on your microphones, comedians feed off your your energy. We can chat with you too if you feel comfortable with it. Also tell us in the private chat where you're watching the show from, whether you're watching on the stream or in the private Zoom room. You can donate. You can do it through Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, and even Stripe, which sounds like way too advanced for my taste. But yeah, if you want to use your credit card and use that Stripe account, you can do that, and that is all in the show notes or in the comments, guys. Kat, speaking of travels and expenses, what are some of the things, like in regards to like when you've been traveling doing comedy, that you've noticed has like been some things that, I don't know, you've either had to be like kind of like cognizant of, or you were kind of, when you were on stage in the middle of it, you're like, oh wow, this does not translate here at all, whether it's international or domestic?
Well, it brings up actually the first time I ever did stand-up comedy. I wanted to do it. I loved stand-ups ever since I was a kid, but I couldn't really admit to myself I wanted to do it. But the first time I ever did was in Shanghai when I was studying abroad.
Wait, what?
Yeah, and people always ask me if it was in English, and I'm like, I don't have balls of steel. You didn't hear clanging when I sat down. I didn't do my first stand-up show and do it in Mandarin, and so it was in English. And one thing I noticed was that the audience was like, okay, you know, like 20 people for like a little show and randomly in Shanghai in the French Quarter, not bad. But then somebody told like, a couple of different people told really sexual dick jokes and walked the very few Chinese people that we had. So by the time I got up, there was like no Chinese folks left. And so people would be like, and I remember in the beginning of that show, they'd be like, do not make jokes of the Chinese government. Do not make jokes about me telling you not to make jokes about the Chinese government. We will be shut down. I cannot find another new venue. Please, like, but I'd say just don't. Yeah, be careful depending on what your audience is. If it's going to be the audience's first time at stand up, especially first time at an English stand up show, maybe just one dick joke, and then gauge how they receive it before you decide if you want to tell more or if you should tell more after the guy before you did. You know, I would say for advice.
And I would also say that, like, you know, some people talk about their first time doing stand-up comedy and they're like, oh, you know, it was a coffee shop down the street and I had my people from the office come by and check it out. Or they're like, it was a talent show in high school or college. You're like, yeah, I did it like in a totalitarian regime.
I never said totalitarian. Did you hear me, Chinese government? I didn't say it. You can still hire me.
I didn't say that you said that. I didn't say that you said that. I was just saying in theory, let's say. If
I think those people are braver than me because I did it. One thing, I made my best friend, well, didn't make her. She was happy to do it, even though she shouldn't have been. She listened to me practice the same 5 minutes, probably upwards of 55 times. To get ready. And then I watched them do stand-up twice, but I was too nervous to talk to any stand-ups. They seemed too cool. And so then I meticulously planned to do my first stand-up show on the absolute last weekend that I was in Shanghai. Because in a city of 10 million people, the risk of one of 10 people in the audience running into me later if I bombed was just too high, Michael. It was too high of a risk. That's a 1 in a million chance. I could run into them anywhere. So I planned it for the last weekend. People bringing their coworkers was way braver than me. Last absolute weekend. And then I went, the worst thing that can happen to you, we all know, in your first stand-up show is to get one really big laugh because then you're in it for life. And so I did. And so they called me a week later. They were like, come on by. We'd like to have you. I was like, oh, I'm on a plane. I can't come back.
Well, you know what's interesting about that, what you were just saying there is like about getting that, like that one laugh and then like now you're in it forever type of a thing. It was like you made it sound like it was heroin. You're like I just got that high and like next thing I know I'm living on a street corner. I just don't and but it's crazy about that because I've thought about the people who like also try
or living in a van down by the river.
Yeah, tried stand-up comedy and it didn't go well that first set. Like how their lives must have been be so different now. You know, it's like, well, you know, I just bought my third home, and yeah, everything's going well with the wife at home, and yeah, my stocks portfolio is looking really solid. And then the one person that got laughs,
good health insurance. I just went to the doctor for fun. Like
the one that got like the laugh, they're like 10 years later, and they're like, yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, like, I guess I've got a good amount of plasma, so I've heard I can sell that. It's just, is that still a thing? Can you still do that type of a thing? So because it is a slippery slope. So obviously I've heard that there's a very big English speaking comedy community when it comes to when it comes to Asia. And does that make it, like, for instance, like, I know a lot of the times when we were doing like HI Santa Monica, there would be, you know, a hodgepodge of different groups of people at the shows. And a lot of times there would be like one or two people from an Asian country in there that would be a little bit lost. Is that something that, like, you feel like that's like your go-to group? You're like, oh no, I'm actually good with these people right here. It's the Scandinavians that I have issues with.
I did have issues with the Scandinavians when I did your show. I was like, oh, they don't get this reference, and they'll stone face. I do like that. At least I speak for Chinese folks. They will do polite, nervous laughter. That's their forte. They will not stone face you. They will do polite, nervous laughter. I don't know. That's tricky. I probably would, if in that hostile situation, I probably would try to bring up like a couple of stories I have. Like right after I did my first show, my dad came to visit me in Shanghai, and we toured around China together. And everywhere that we went, people wanted to know if he was my dad or my sugar daddy.
Oh, really?
And so, yes, they did, but they did it in a very polite way. Where they couldn't tell if it was my dad with me or my boyfriend, even though he's much, much, much older. And so they would go, "He is your what?" And one time in a restaurant, I said, "Oh, it's my dad," and she went, "Oh," and then turned to the kitchen and yelled, "It's her dad!" in Chinese. But one person was the smartest. Most people, they asked halfway through the meal or they asked toward the beginning, but this one saleswoman, she waited until the money was physically in her hand. And then the second it was in her hand, she was like, "So he's your what?"
Wow. That's unreal. I mean, you know, the thing is that, like, that's not also not uncommon in Southern California either.
Exactly. Where is this? LA?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
what do you think's going on here?
Oh my gosh. I was actually,
They treated me a lot better once they figured out he was actually my father.
well, you know, I mean, the thing is that nowadays they're doing wonderful things when it comes to, you know, to cosmetic surgery. For all you know, you could be 65. I don't know, you know. But you're like, what Zoom filter's on right now? I'm a little confused on what's taking place right here. So Kat, I want to ask you about this though, because like you did do the show at HI Santa Monica. What were some of like your favorite experiences that you had performing for like a multitude of different countries at the same time?
Well, it's nice to make people from all different countries laugh, even if sometimes you do realize too late that your Civil War joke probably isn't going to go over for this crowd as well as you hope.
Or they'll be like, wait, that's not how I remember the Civil War. The Civil War took place in like, and you're like, that's a different Civil War. That's not.
No, that's Slovenia's Civil War.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
my apologies. I should have been more specific, and I apologize for that. Like,
that's how American centric we are, though. Sometimes it's like we'll just bring up things like, you know, like the Civil War, and we'll just like, they're like some, you know, people from other countries will be like, oh yeah, that was a difficult decision. My parents had to flee and everything like that. And I'm like, I should have said the American Civil War, because they're not on the same page as.
I do love that every single country in the world puts themselves in the middle of the map when they make a map. That's my favorite.
Wait, is that true? Is that true?
Yeah, every country puts themselves in the middle.
I didn't
know that.
China's
map, China's in the middle. America's map, America's in the center. Center, I should say. They put themselves front and center.
Okay.
I think Australia even has their own map with their front and center.
Actually, speaking of that, in regards to like how well when I've traveled overseas, and also when I've just been doing
Oh,
the
I did
shows.
comedy in Australia. I forgot about that. So sorry. Go on.
No, that's okay. Please, please plug that in.
No, I would. Okay.
No,
Yeah.
Go.
I was like, I know there's another place I'm forgetting. I was racking my brain.
Well, it's so funny that you just said that right there, because Australia has a massive comedy community. Like I'd say it's one of the biggest in the world out there. And we've had big Australian comedians come and do shows at HI Santa Monica, and Australians in the crowd were like, "How did you get so and so to come and do this show?" I'm like, because in the United States, they're emailing me asking if I can do 15 minutes on a Saturday in a storage facility. Like that's that's how, like, how like we myopic we get in regards to like comedy, in the United States. We think if you're not big in the US, then you must not be doing comedy. I can't tell you how many comics
Which is silly.
even live in LA and are huge in other countries, but they live here, and they do that intentionally because they're just so anonymous here. They can just live their lives.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. No, we're really no segue for that. Just, we'll just leave it at that. So when you did Australia, did you do Sydney, Melbourne, like East Coast, West Coast? Melbourne.
I
Okay.
I met an Australian comic in Honolulu who lived in Melbourne, and he helped me get connections to Melbourne out there, and it was so much fun. Great crowds. Really, really fun guy. Not as relaxed as I'd say the New Zealanders are. Australians have a reputation for being relaxed, but New Zealand definitely has them beat. But still so much fun. Like the one that I did was like this like tiny theater indie show.
Yeah.
And I still think about one of their jokes every now and again. But they did this. I didn't know they had their own Fringe in Melbourne. They have a Fringe festival as well. It might have the same name. It might have a different name. I feel like it has the same name.
Yeah, you know what? I think I actually realized that too. I know they have the Melbourne Comedy Festival, of course, which is like one of the biggest ones in the world. In the world, right there. Is that the one you're talking about, or are you talking about the Fringe?
Might be, because I was talking with an Australian friend about it, and he was like, all these comics are going to lose so much money. They're all about to lose so much money.
I think that also when it comes to like, traveling internationally, and I want to give this advice to any of the comedians, who might be watching this or listening to the podcast later on, is that like, be prepared to take a loss if you're going to travel overseas to do comedy at first. Just think of it as like the experience type of a thing. And like, if you break even, it's fantastic, but you're going to need to, like, I have a friend of mine, like he goes to Asia all the time to do stand-up now. And now it's profitable for him because he's developed a little bit of a following there, and he's been consistent on getting the gigs and stuff like that. But he was willing to take that loss at first to go out there so that he could, experience it and get his name out there. And then when he was requested back, it's a whole different story. I guess nowadays it's different with social media, though. You could probably already have a following before you even get over there. Maybe you should become the Mandarin comic now. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd love to do some films. They have some great filmmakers over in China right now, like Zhang Yimou, and some fantastic comedians. I don't know. That's a good point. What you were saying. I'm not sure. I think there's still something to be said for people like in-person comedy. It's nice to follow people on social media. You can get a following that way. But when somebody sees you in person, and this is maybe not the best thing to say on a social media thing, I feel like you hold a special place in their heart. Like I've been to so many shows. I think even one of them was your show. Where something has come up to me in the audience afterward and told me that, you know what, I was really depressed. Like one time at your show, somebody said that they had come over to Santa Monica just to clear out their mother's apartment after she had passed away. And then like didn't want to stay in the apartment. So was just staying in the hostel while they were there, and wandered into the comedy show and was like, oh my gosh, it was exactly what I needed. I didn't even know this was going on, but this is exactly what I needed tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the thing is that like, we never sometimes know that. We never, and it's funny because sometimes in regards to like with the hostel, HI Santa Monica, some of the stories from the people in the crowd sometimes are more interesting than what's going on stage. And, I think that it's like, it's like massively important to understand that, like, I think a lot of times comedians, we start thinking that this is it's for us, but it's really for them. And you have to be cognizant of that and be like, okay, how can I make this experience entertaining and engaging for this person? Yes, maybe there's things I want to say, but you want them to leave and being like, you know what, I had a good time. I want to experience this again. Maybe it's not even with you, but it's with other comedians, and just keep, spreading the art, really, if that makes sense.
It does. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, like, what was one of the craziest experiences you had traveling overseas? And please, I don't want to get you involved in trouble with the Chinese government. So don't,
when I was 13, my father and I went on a trip to Great Britain. There's some incredible, speaking of like British comics who don't have a huge following in the US, Dylan Moran is still one of my all-time favorites. But we went on this trip, and well, one weird thing was that my first impression of, we didn't get a hotel our first night in London. We just wandered around the streets of London, which was very safe because there was police officers everywhere.
Yeah.
And so we got to see the entire city go from like the club goers at 2 a.m. to the early morning joggers at 6 a.m. because we just wandered around all night.
Yeah.
But after that, my first impression of London during the day was Hare Krishnas, because we happened to arrive on the day of the Hare Krishna parade. So just thousands and thousands of Hare Krishnas. But what was really weird was every single time we would go to get on a train, there was always a big to-do where they would like look at our tickets and then look at us and then look at our tickets and then look at us and then be like agitatedly on their computer and then agitatedly on their computer some more and then looking at us and then calling somebody and then agitated on their computer. And it was only us that this was happening for. So we were like, what's going on? How is this happening for us with every single time we get on a train? We got on a lot of trains. And eventually we figured out, they told us that in England, there was no way for them to put in their system that it was a father and a daughter traveling together. Their system only recognized that you were trying to put a man and an underage girl together.
What?
And it wouldn't allow you to do that. And so to get around it, they had to lie and say that I was a boy, because my dad didn't want me to room with a strange woman he didn't know.
Oh my God.
The only way to do it, a father and a son could stay together and a mother and a daughter could stay together, but there was no way in their system for them to put that it's a father and a underage daughter. Like their system was like pedophile alert, I guess. And so I don't know what's going on with England in the state of their father-daughter, bonding time, but it's not looking good based on that.
So basically, if you talk to like any English man like over the age of 40 who has a daughter under the age of 18, he's like, it's not my fault. I'm not a deadbeat father. I'm just trying to be a law-abiding citizen here. I don't know what to tell you.
I would love to have her come see me and stuff and travel, but wouldn't you know it, just can't do it.
That's crazy. I think one of the things that I think about with that is that it's these, sometimes a lot of times it's like little cultural differences that kind of, you kind of, I don't know. Sometimes like I feel like as Americans, like we post judgment based on like our point of view on others and go, that's because whether what's right, what's wrong type of thing. I mean, I don't want to get sociopolitical here or anything like that, but I think that's also something that we take in mind in regards to like doing stand up in other countries or for people from different places. So like everyone's going to have things that are quote unquote, wrong or right based on, on their culture.
True, exactly. And I actually tell people to give America more slack because they're always like, why is America so weird? And I'm like, because we're by ourselves in the middle of the ocean with just one neighbor we don't speak the language of and one neighbor we don't really talk to because they're kind of lame. And that's going to make you weird. We don't have other countries around us. We're just alone playing our weird football game, measuring things how we want to measure it. What do you think was going to happen? You leave your cousin in the woods by himself for 10 years, he's going to come out a little different,
Oh my gosh. I never thought of it before like that. Like we just have like socially awkward neighbor who doesn't really we don't really
We're the homeschool kids.
yeah. Oh my God, we're the which is why we don't engage in wars. Like we don't get involved until late we do when it involves when it's our personal interests that are getting invaded. But other than
we're the homeschool kid that his dad likes guns. That one.
I will say this though, it's funny that you brought up Hawaii and Alaska, because like I feel like Americans know less about geography than the rest of the world does about our geography. I mean, like, how many Americans literally think that Alaska and Hawaii are near each other?
My poor Hawaii friends used to feel so bad about themselves because their geography was bad. And I was always like, give yourself a break. If you tried to take a road trip, you would die. It's easy for Europe to know where things are. They're all playing soccer against each other and they can travel to each other. But like my one Hawaii friend, we worked together and she called me over and she was like almost crying. She was like, I feel so stupid. And I was like, what happened? Baby, what happened? She said, this customer came over and they said that they're from Canada and that they drove to Alaska. And I said, what do you mean? Do you have a boat car? And they laughed at me. And it turns out that Alaska's not an island, but when you look at it on the map, it's by itself with Hawaii by itself.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, I think the thing is too, like in regards to that, is that like I think that Europeans also need to make sure that they're tight on their American geography before they plan their trips here, because I can't tell you how many times I've met people and they're like, yeah, I was so right now on our itinerary we're going to Vegas and then Seattle, then Houston. Then I'm like, do you have any idea how far these locations are from you? But I think when you grow up with, like, I don't know, across the street is a different language, you don't think about the distances of our country, and it's massive. I mean, obviously when you were living in China, people also don't realize how big China is, I'm sure.
I feel like Americans know how big China is because we know it's roughly our size. But I do feel bad, and I also feel bad that when people plan trips to America, our most fun and most American things to do are the least accessible, like tailgating and camping and things like that. Like, there's not a lot of services to go do that. You can go visit the cities, but to go do quintessentially American things, it's hard to do.
I mean, actually, that's actually a really good point. Like, it's a lot of the times, like, and I've talked to people who give tours, like, tours of tourists and everything like that out here, and they say that most of the time on these tours, these people never really engage with any Americans. They're literally around people from other countries most of the time. So like when they go back to their countries, they're like, how was the United States? They're like, man, I met a lovely Swedish couple, and these kids from Ireland were really cool. And it's like, did you ever meet anyone from the United States? They're like, I think the person who worked at the hotel was not from the United States. So it's almost like they were like
Funny, I wouldn't have thought of that.
They're like window shopping the United States, really. Or like using the demo version of the United States, the free demo version, until like you have to pay for the monthly subscription and stay here, which then you realize is not worth it. It's
hey, they'll get a story, or they'll get a story to bring home to their friends about, are Americans friendly or are they fake? This random stranger said, "Hey, nice pants," on the street. I almost had a heart attack.
That's very true. Well, speaking of heart attacks, hopefully no one's had a heart attack already listening us talk about international travel and international comedy. Kat, I'm going to give you the opportunity right now. It's totally your call. If there's some things that you want to work out with me, you can do that right now, and then we can break it down some of these bits, and then we'll kind of wrap everything up. But you down with that?
Yes, totally.
All right, awesome, guys. Your comedian coming to the online stage right now. Anything you want to plug right now, by the way, Kat?
For right now, we are releasing a comedy buddy cop movie that I'm in called Die Soft, and it'll be released for Christmas to come right around with Die Hard. So keep an eye out for that. It's called, like I said, Die Soft, and I will be announcing it on my Instagram and other social medias. My handles across all platforms are This Is Kat Moore, Kat.
Awesome, guys. So make sure that you check out Die Soft when it comes out this holiday season. But until then, the one and only Kat Moore, everybody! Kat!
Woo! Thank you. All right. Oh, this is exciting. I get to have something broken down with by Michael. Okay. All right. Well, this is a story I've been kind of working on a little bit, off and on. It's one of those things that you don't, when you don't really realize it's a weird story when you first hear it as a kid until you grow up and hear other people's reactions to it. But there was this client that my dad had who was shot 5 times. Speaking of American stories, was he a police officer? No. He was shot 5 times by 3 women. And he would say something. He would go, I learned something after that 5th time. He'd be like, oh, was it not to meet women at the gun range anymore? Was that the lesson? Okay. I learned something after that. When a man says, shut up or I'll shoot you, you can usually talk him down. When a woman says, shut up or I'll shoot you, you should probably prepare to get shot. The 5th time, I just want to know what you were saying to these women. What was the first time that you tried it? Was the first time, shut up or I'll shoot you? No, you won't. Oh, dear God. Was that how it went? And then the second time was like, oh, please don't. Oh, wait. And then still. And then the 3rd time, did you say nothing, but maybe mime something offensive? Like, when did you learn it? And the most pertinent question of all to me, those numbers don't add up. Who shot you twice? Or did one person shoot you 3 times? Just go absolutely ham and shoot you 3 times in a row. Because to me, after I got shot the first time, I would probably just never talk again. So that's a rough bit of where it's at, Michael.
I think the funniest thing about that whole thing is it's just in regards to like the whole contrast between like, and obviously it's been done to death before about the differences between men and women type of a thing, but like the also just the lack of men and women being able to communicate with each other, I think is really expressed in that bit as well too, because like the fact that man believes that they can talk down the other man because like they know how they're thinking, they understand their process, their thinking process, but the fact with the women that they're just going to get shot because there's no hope here because that's how I'm seeing it.
To me, I need to make that joke. I need to work on that joke and make it more clear. Because to me, what it is that he's been threatened that before, but like with a man, they're a little bit more quick on the trigger, and you can like talk them down. But with a woman, once they've gotten to the point where they've grabbed the gun, they've already made the decision to shoot.
So maybe that's a direction that you could go with it too.
I do need.
That's
a good idea.
That's a direction to go with it too. It's like so build that more type of a thing. Is that like, and then kind of I don't want to say like explain, but like break down like the woman's thought process that takes them to this point. That men are more impulsive. Men are if they've somebody pushes them. They're willing to, the first thing they do is pick up a gun. If a woman's picked up a gun like this, these are the steps that must have happened before that even took place type of a thing.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
See, this is the issue with writing in general. Sometimes you're just so close to the wall.
I know. I know. Well, you're too connected to it, and you're not seeing it from the other perspective. I think also the great thing is, talking about international comedy is that like a lot of people overseas they just assume that every American carries a gun everywhere they go.
Have you been hearing those stories lately about how the Americans are, I feel like eventually someone's going to get themselves hurt, but how Americans are beating the bejesus out of pickpocketers?
No.
You haven't heard about that? They
No.
made so many funny TikToks. Well, it started with the Olympics, where because people are grabbing Americans' stuff and then not even having weapons when they grab our things, which personally offends Americans because it's like you're calling me weak.
Yeah.
That you're going to take my things and not even threaten my life at the same time. And so one year in the Olympics, an American threw a guy down the stairs, and like one woman recently grabbed her by her ponytail and refused to let the pickpocketer go until the police arrived an hour later.
Wait.
And apparently it got to the point where the French during the Olympics had to start being like, don't target the Americans for pickpocketing. Don't, I guess because they're, with their health system, it was too much weight on there. Like, target other countries. Do not target the Americans for pickpocketing. Like,
that is insane. It's so.
Well, why would you? Why would you see an American flag and you make all these jokes about how we're violent and then be like, let's steal from that person?
No, you're not right. You wouldn't. But I think also it's also just like everything is sensationalized, in regards to, and you only know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know, and
it's probably also instinctive. They at one point or another just sort of.
Yeah, but I mean, but I was talking to an Australian a few weeks back at a 1-year-old's birthday party, as you do, and they had come in from Australia for the 1-year-old's birthday party. They were related to this 1-year-old. That would be weird if they traveled all the way from Australia just for.
Don't try to get on a train.
Don't try to get on a train. But they were like telling me, they're like, we were so concerned about coming here because, we thought that X was going on and blah, 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 because the way things were being spun over there was that like Los Angeles was on fire. Like the images they saw, they thought, and they were hearing this rhetoric of war zone and everything like that. And they were like, and so I think a lot of the times for Americans, it's the same thing in regards to overseas. It's like the rhetoric we hear and the sensationalization of different regions of the world, and we assume that it's like that everywhere and that it's like a movie and everything, and then you go there and you realize like, oh, actually no, I was actually pretty safe here and there was no issues whatsoever. I had a great time. I don't know what, but I heard on the news, I'm like, yeah, but dude, a guy just lost his face across the street on Sunset, but like that's not making the news. Like, so like things can happen anywhere. I don't know.
He just misplaced his face.
Yeah, he just misplaced his face. He was trying to reenact the scene from Face Off with John Travolta and Nicolas Cage. Yeah, that's what he was.
Okay, good.
That's
different. I'm glad we clarified.
Actually, no. I mean, somebody did literally get shot down the street from me at like 3 in the morning. But
oh my gosh, that's such an American point of view. I was like, oh, they just got shot. I thought it was some sort of chimpanzee situation. Like when they.
Oh my god, oh my god, like where they rip off the face,
right?
Oh my god, my girlfriend, she was working on a set once and they had a chimpanzee on there, and she said like the chimpanzee, like she held the chimpanzee's hand and it was so weird because it felt like a human, because it feels like human hands, so it feels like you're holding a person.
That, actually.
Oh, you do? Do you want to run through?
Yeah, yeah. I never heard it to be improved.
Yeah.
So I'm very brave when it comes to movies. I just have very simple, 3 rules. No clones, no robots with human feelings, and absolutely no scary monkeys. My friends will be like, well, how did you see Planet of the Apes? I didn't make it through the Planet of the Apes trailer. I literally was in the audience being like, la, 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 why did they make this movie again? Like, no, I did not enjoy it. And so when Jordan Peele came out with his movie Us, I couldn't see it. I don't like clones. But I wanted to support him in his little scary movie venture. It's not my thing, but he's made me laugh for many years, so I'd like to support him. I consider us friends. We've never met, but we're friends as far as I'm concerned. And so when Nope came out, I was like, all right, I'll make up for it. And I did what I always do when a movie comes out. I Googled the movie. I read the synopsis, no monkeys. I watched trailer 1 and trailer 2, no monkeys. Good to go. Went to the theater, scariest monkey scene in cinematic history. Yeah, in this alien movie. And that's not, you need to tell me what kind of a movie I'm in. And so now, as far as I'm concerned, Jordan Peele is now my mortal enemy. I'm going to get my revenge. I'm going to find out where he lives, and I'm going to release a monkey into his home. And while he's screaming, I'll be like, yeah, it's nice when someone warns you about a monkey, isn't it, Jordan?
Oh my
That's what
gosh.
I've worked.
So yeah, wow. So it's clones and monkeys for you, huh?
And robots with human feelings.
Okay.
I know I need to expand on those 3 more, maybe just skip straight to monkeys.
I think the great thing about that though, Kat, is that you are a generative AI of the comedian Kat Moore. So it's very understandable that you would have those
I
feelings.
try to get, I tell chat, if I chat to ChatGPT, I try to tell it, I'm like, I want you to talk more like a robot, because I feel like that way you and I both know your place.
I had the craziest experience the other day, speaking of clones and robots and AI and all that. I was talking to customer service to schedule an appointment, and it dawned on me after like, I don't know, like 45 seconds to like a minute and 30 seconds. I'm like, it's 12:38 at the morning. I'm talking to a bot. There's no way this is a real person that's up right now.
Oh, people, how did you know it was a bot? Did you test it?
Because it was for a local podiatrist.
Oh yeah, no, that's a bot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I apologize. I shouldn't have doubted you.
Yeah, if it was like Amazon or something like that, I'd be like, yeah, it's outsourced or whatever.
Yeah, Geico or something.
Exactly.
People, yeah, but
yeah,
no, that's a bot.
That's a bot.
See, I like to know. I like to know who I'm. And then because then I feel like a fool. You know.
But I also was being so casual with it, and it picked up everything I said, and it responded back like it was a person, and it sounded like this woman. That is so scary. Do you realize how scary that is?
They were getting good at it. It's very scary.
That was really scary, and it wasn't until they went like, "Okay, cool." Well, she didn't say cool. That would have been amazing if she.
That would have been cool.
If they had.
That's 1950s slang. They should say cool. Yeah.
They said, "Okay, great. Well, we'll transfer you. I'm going to transfer you. I can't handle that right now, so I'm going to transfer you over to the local office so they can finish the scheduling for you and change that appointment. Hold, please." And then I realized it when they did that. I was like, "Oh, the reason that they can't do this is because that office isn't open, which means that they can't communicate, which means that like." I don't know. It was just really.
Why'd you have this whole long conversation with this robot?
I had like a 2-minute conversation. Hold on. Let's look and see how long I was on the phone with this robot. Let's see here.
Now she's not only a robot, she's a time waster. She could have just transferred you right away.
4 minutes.
Dang.
12:34 in the morning.
You're like in that movie Her. You were halfway to being in love with this.
My God, I was in a relationship with this robot.
Yeah. You were like, so what are you doing after your shift?
Oh my God. I mean, yeah. What are your thoughts on that? You know, I know this isn't really in regard. Well, actually, no, this is on the international tip, because the thing is that like, it seems like especially in Southeast Asia, and East Asia, you know, it seems like the robots, the androids, they're really starting to get very lifelike, and they're, I don't know. It's creepy.
I don't really have many thoughts on that, because I feel like my thoughts aren't going to make much of a difference one way or the other on if it's I'm like, if I think, oh, people are still going to want the real thing and do the real thing, yeah, that's probably true. But kids, when they grow up with stuff, they don't know something's different, like, so they just know the world that they're in. So I haven't formed, I kind of consciously haven't formed all that many opinions on it, because I feel like sort of along for the ride in regards, you know.
I mean, the thing is, it's like, you know,
I hate to be wrong so much that I just won't form any.
Well, I was really happy to hear last week when a lot of high profile, artists were like, I'm going to, like, if my reps sign the AI, then I will drop them. And because these people were so high profile, like no agency touched them. But if they hadn't said anything, like, they absolutely would have signed it. And that is really concerning to me, because as a lot of people were explaining, it's like this program is essentially an amalgamation of different people's performances, which is how they were trained to be an actor. And it's not a performance. It's a code, and it's just repeating things over and over again. So there's no, I don't know. We're getting how real.
It does make me want to get better at acting, though, and take more classes, because it's like, listen, I cannot let my nerves make me a worse actor than an AI.
Than an AI. I think
gotta at least make it so that I can be on par. Because you know how it is. You get nervous, and then all of a sudden you're very robotic.
Yeah.
And now what? The robot's not robotic, and I am. That's not cool.
I will say though, I am okay with generative AI taking over the influencer world. That's cool with me. I am fine with that.
Influencers have a tough job. I've done like one or two like little like things just for like a friend, and I end up being like, oh my gosh, if I have to reshoot this little thing one more time, I'm gonna throw my phone out the window.
It's so hard to do short form content for me. Like it's easier for me to do something like this than it is to do like 5 seconds, 10 seconds. It's just
lonely. They spend a lot of time in a room by themselves.
Yeah.
Or in a room with a lot of people crunching it out, but that's only once you reach a certain level. I don't know. I just know I couldn't do it. So I have respect for influencers because it's not for me.
No, you're right. It is a hard thing. It's a hard thing to open a box and pull out that shampoo bottle and show it to everybody. You're right. It's very
Ryan, what is it? Ryan Rates Toys. Listen, he's putting in so many hours.
rating those toys. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I was just thinking about like self-taping, and I know this getting back on the industry tip or whatever, but talking about AI, talking about automation, talking about streamlining everything. I hate the self-taping. I can't stand it. I would much rather go somewhere and be in front of people and actually feel that energy type of a thing, or do a Zoom audition. But I like Zoom, but like the self-taping thing. First off, it's like they're like, I've like the amount of auditions they can give you now because of self-taping, but quantity doesn't necessarily mean quality. So it's like, am I just getting self-tapes because they're just willing to look at anybody now?
And partly because, and this is relevant to everyone, you can always tell when the economy is in a slump when A-list actors start doing commercials.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because so many of the commercials are A-list actors, and then I also get a lot of non-union commercial auditions for companies that I know can afford to pay unions.
Yes,
I'm like,
thank you.
This isn't one of them, because I'm not gonna. I don't know. Maybe I should, but like, you'll get the equivalent of like Apple or Walmart, and it'd be like, you have the money for union, and I know you're making it harder for yourself to do non-union. You're only gonna pay $600 for the equivalent of an Apple like commercial. It doesn't make any sense.
And it's crazy.
It makes sense
because the thing is, I think they said something like 70% of commercial auditions are now non-union, or commercials that are shot are now non-union, which makes it, obviously there's a whole thing, which is why a lot of reps, when people are SAG eligible, they just tell them like, don't become SAG AFTRA until you have to become SAG AFTRA, because, it limits your opportunities type of a thing. But at some point in time, you are going to book a SAG AFTRA gig, and you're going to have to, like, what do you say? No, I'm not going to do this Volkswagen commercial, so that I'm available for the local dentist. But that being said, the local dentist, there needs to be a market for them, non-union, so that they can be able to do the content that they require for their own marketing based on their budget. But like, there's no reason that Microsoft or, Chevrolet or, Uber or DoorDash or any of these big companies,
like any name brand
needs to do non-union, because you can afford it. And if anything, I think that's just like such a slap in the face, to the talent, to being like, we don't value you enough that to make this a union project and pay you what you deserve for this gig. I don't know. I'm on my soapbox right here, and
I like it. It's a good soapbox.
Well,
name brand.
Well, as we start wrapping up, I do want to ask you about this, Kat, because you were talking about, Chinese creators and Australian performers and everything like that. Are there any international artists out there that you really think a lot of people in the United States need to start taking a look at, that you highly recommend?
Oh, I'm obsessed with Zhang Yimou, the film director. He makes beautiful, beautiful work. That's Zhang, Zhang, and then separate word Yimou. Watched him in my Chinese film studies class. He's beautiful. So That'd be the one.
that
Him
would,
and Dylan Moran.
and Dylan Moran.
If you want to watch a comedian because you're listening to a comedy podcast, that might be more your style.
Yeah.
Dylan Moran, even his older stuff, his newer stuff, he's so funny. He was part of this show, Black Books, which is one of those shows that is not meant to be binged, but I sure tried anyway. Like he figures out that he can delay putting his taxes in if he's in serious physical like stress, and so he goes out and is like, which one of you bitches wants to dance, to try and get people to beat the crap out of him. So it's the kind of show you're tempted to binge it, but just like I had a boyfriend that binge watched all of Frasier, and like I was like, it's not meant for that, and he still did it. And after 3 weeks of like 5-10 episodes a day, he was like, a lot of time if they just communicated, solve the issue. And I was like, you don't say. It only took 5 seasons for you to notice a recurring theme. Like
That's amazing. That's amazing. Also, I mean, like there was no such thing as binging back then. So like they didn't even think about generating content like in that regard. I mean, like
yeah, they were like, maybe a couple people get the DVDs, but they won't mind. Like
yeah, exactly. What are your thoughts on I know obviously in China they're very popular. What the vertical shorts?
Oh, it's so tricky because like I did see one that was produced in China, one about an emperor in disguise as an impoverished person who ends up like this girl gets married to him through like an arranged marriage type deal, but she thinks he actually is impoverished. And I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, when's she gonna find out? What's her family gonna do? Like I had to leave TikTok and look up the website to find when the next episode was. So that made me be like, okay, there's something there. But on the other hand, I don't, you have to be so careful because you could also end up in one where it's like, is it bad writing or is it bad acting? I don't know. So I'll blame the actor, and where I'm in love with a werewolf, but the werewolf was already pregnant, like, so like, as I say that sounds like a good idea. I'm going to write that.
I think one of the things is, and I was talking to somebody about this, is that, we talk about cultural differences and we talk about, it goes both ways. A lot of this content is being created overseas for an American market. And a lot of the times they're using their.
But I think produced here. I have a friend that does them, that gets auditions for them and acts in them.
Yeah, but all the writers and the producers and directors are all from overseas. And so I'm thinking like they're just they're using their POV of the American market and culture to create content, which is then being Google translated from, let's say, Mandarin into English, and that it might not necessarily translate directly like that. So I think I'm going to give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt in regards to.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I know that it depends, because I know that a lot of time there's also like sometimes people back in China want to watch things with Americans in it. So I think that's also part of the reason it's produced in America.
Oh.
Yeah. What was the other thing I was going to say? It's something relevant.
So it's not made for the American market. It's made for the overseas market.
Partly.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like I know from, oh gosh, I'm gonna look at such a nerd, but like I used to read and sometimes still do read a little bit of fan fiction, and half the fanfics these days are in Chinese, and they're like for American kind of shows and stuff.
Oh wow. You just admitted that on the air.
I won't tell you what shows what shows are things to do though. You can't have to torture me for those.
Oh my gosh. Well, Kat, thanks for joining us, and I hope you had fun breaking down some of the stuff and talking about some of these little tidbits of information from the international comedy world. If people want to find you, where is the best place for them to connect with you?
Best place to connect with me would be on Instagram or on TikTok with This Is Kat Moore. I somehow got that handle for every social media platform. Kat Moore is a pretty common name. There was a band in Texas called the Kat Moore Band, and I actively prayed for their downfall for years until they finally broke up and gave me back my Google results. So for me, to find me, it's This Is Kat Moore, KATMOORE. Thanks so much, Michael. I had a great time.
Of course. And guys, if you want to follow us at Comedy in English on all social medias, except for on Twitter /X, which is Comedy the letter N and then English, because comedy and English was already taken a long time ago, probably by somebody who does vertical shorts overseas. I don't know who did that. They did that sounds like the title of a vertical short. So follow us there, guys. You can follow me at Michael Magid on all social medias. That's all the time on Comedy and English, and we will see you later. We're out. Hold on.